Hey everyone, thanks for jumping on. I'll just give you a couple thoughts on a few topics, and then you can fire away with whatever questions you all have. Uh, as I've said probably too many times, it's a different feel in fall around here without competitions to get ready for and prepare to both compete in and host. It feels a whole lot different. I think. There's no other way to describe it, but we're all figuring it out as best we can. The good news on our side is from a testing and sort of virus incidence perspective within our student athlete population. I think our protocols have been working really well. We've had we've had insignificant positive activity from the student athlete perspective, which I feel like speaks a lot to the great work that our staff has done, putting together a series of hygiene and safety protocols, plus the testing regimen that we follow, but also to our athletes for following it and for paying attention and taking it seriously, which I think is really, really important at this point in time as we try to do our part to keep the transmission of the virus to a bare minimum in and around our community. The other things that are important right now, or that are happening for our athletes, for our student athletes, it's really sort of an extended preseason. Without the immediacy of competition right around the corner, you try to find opportunities to get better wherever you can, however you can. I think our coaches have done a great job of designing practice routines and schedules that are focused on exactly that, just trying to keep people sharp, but also find a way to have them realize that sense of improvement and getting better, so that when competition does return, we're not starting to get ready. We are ready to actually compete and compete successfully. So I think that's all been done really well. Other pieces that are important right now are, more important than ever, are our student athlete development initiatives, as well as our mental health piece. The mental health piece is a real thing. It's a real thing all day, every day. But in this time, when everyone's dealing with frustration and anxiety and uncertainty, it just adds to sort of that level of stress that comes with all of our daily lives. So I think making sure that we handle that and make that available in a really good way. And it's worked out tremendously. Our two docs, Dr. Foltz, Dr. Dawson, have been tremendous in terms of their programming and their accessibility and their availability to our students. So that's been really good. And then Peyton Stovall and his group, Dr. Lacey Carmen Johnson and others have done a great job putting together some student athlete programming early in the semester that has been really well attended and utilized. Lots of it focused on career development and sort of finding ways to for our young people to put themselves in a position when their time at Purdue is over to be successful. And we've had both Eli Lilly and then Fiat Chrysler have done some programming here that we've had probably more well attended than anything we've ever done like that in the past. In fact, certainly more well attended than anything we've ever done. So I think our students are doing a really good job of, again, trying to find those opportunities in this strange environment. At the same time, we've launched, and you guys all know this, the More Than a Game campaign initiative to help us get through the financial challenges that are absolutely in our midst here. And we're obviously not alone. You see it all around the country. We're all dealing with revenue impairments at a significant level, tens of millions of dollars. And so I'm pleased at this point in time to tell you that we're off to a great start. We're only a couple weeks in, and our folks have responded well. There's lots of runway left to go, and lots of dollars we still need to raise to be able to keep ourselves in a good spot and to confine this problem to the shortest time frame possible. But the good news is our folks are responding, as I knew Purdue community would. Tomorrow is our Purdue Day of Giving, which is a huge day. It was typically in April, got pushed back this year to September, but having that tomorrow and coinciding with relatively timed up with the launch of our campaign, I think is fortuitous for us, and we look forward to a really big day tomorrow on all fronts, and know that our folks will be generous to the extent that their circumstances allow. So all good on that front. And the last thing that I just want to mention is we're going to retool the Jeff Brom weekly radio show as it without any game activity or game action to talk about at this point in time. We're going to sort of reprogram that. On Wednesday nights, we'll go from 6 to 7. It's going to be called the Purdue Sports Update at this point. Tim Newton, the familiar voice and face, will host that for us. It'll be statewide on our network and on TuneIn and all those different things. But we'll have a variety of different guests on there. I think the first night will be me, Jeff, and a few others. And then we'll rotate people in and out during the course of the semester to try and bring some interest in some programming and some things that hopefully our fans will be interested to listen to. So just trying to keep it relevant and keep it fresh here in these circumstances. So lots going on. I know that was probably more than you bargained for, but there you have it. I do that all the time. So feel free to fire away with your questions, and the way, I don't know how you guys are, if you see the same screen as I do, but I'll go down the line here. Mike Carmen, you're right below me here, so there you go. You win the prize.
The left lower square of the Hollywood Squares, right? Or whatever. A couple of follow-up things to what you opened with, and we always enjoy getting more than what we bargained for. So that's, at least I do. From a medical standpoint, what does the Big Ten presidents need to see from doctors and stuff or hear that would allow not only football to get going, but other sports, and also, kind of same with basketball. What things do they need to see on the medical front to move ahead?
Sure, and it's a great question, Mike. And I don't have that exhaustive list in front of me, but I'll give you a sense of what I know, and also you I think this has been fairly widely known that we have a group that is working on just those things. The medical circumstances were the reason that we're in this postponement phase at this point. So in order to roll out of it, we've got to address the concerns that the council presidents and chancellors had during that August meeting. So there is a group that's headed by Dr. Jim Borchers at Ohio State and Sandy Barber, the AD at Penn State, that has got a lot of medical folks on it. It also has sort of, as an advisory group to that, a group of, I think, 8 of our presidents are also have been at this point informed and engaged with the work of that group, and their task is to do exactly what you talked about, and that is to identify the benchmarks and the medical milestones that have to be achieved in order for us to resume activity, particularly and I think there'll be some nuance. The different sports are classified differently. You don't need the same degree of anything for a sport like golf that you do for football or basketball. There's close contact and high contact, I guess is what they call it, and then there are lesser contact sports like baseball and things like that aren't as intensely close as some others are. So there'll be some nuance as to all that, but it'll be things like frequency, probably rapid result testing, point of care testing would be part of it. A consistency around how we quarantine, how we isolate, how we contact trace, which is sort of the issue that that everyone's always been concerned about. But I think the daily rapid point of care testing with a confirmatory test after a positive, because that's one of the weaknesses of those daily tests right now, is you occasionally get a false positive. Those would be confirmed with a PCR test if you get that. But having that clearly lined out, explained, detailed, and then available and accessible and able to be implemented in a certain time frame, I think is going to be important. The return to activity protocols, making sure those are very clearly lined out and detailed, particularly around cardiac issues. What will be the protocol that we all agree to follow, and making sure that there's availability, accessibility to all the tests that are recommended to be part of that protocol, so that we don't return anybody to play that's got any indication of inflammation in and around the heart or any other issues that result from having exposure to the virus. So all those things, and there's a list of them, Mike. I don't have it in front of me, but those are the items that the presidents, I think, have made it very clear that they will need to have assurance and get comfortable around in order to authorize us return to activity. I think that's all achievable. There's none of it that's an insurmountable climb here, but it's just got to get done, and that's the phase that we're in right
now. So when do you anticipate football being played again in the Big Ten?
I would be guessing if I gave you an exact time frame. I do think it'll be this year. I mean, I do think there'll be football played at some point. Whether it falls into the 2020 football season as it's currently underway remains to be seen. It all depends on the ability to answer those questions and how quickly we can do so. But I do believe we're headed towards a resumption. Sort of a getting out of the postponed status back to an active status here at some point during these next several months. I just don't know when that will be. But that is clearly everybody's objective. I think everybody wants to return to football competition as soon as it's possible. But that possibility is dependent on those medical questions being answered.
Is there enough lead up time to have something in 2020?
I think there is. I think there comes a point where you are pushing into an alternate kind of season, but we're not there yet. I think there's still a possibility, but things have to happen quickly and clearly and to the satisfaction of the presidents before we can get there.
Right. With your campaign, the money that you're raising right now, mm-hmm. What will you use that money for? Is that just go in the general operating budget to handle your day-to-day activities, or is there something else planned for that?
Yeah, no. So we have like most everybody around the country. We have these large revenue shortfalls. All of our revenue is, other than pure donations, it's all activity-based. If we don't have football games, basketball games, we don't have ticket sales. We don't have seating gifts that are associated with tickets. We don't have parking. We don't have concessions. We don't have sponsorship in the normal course of business. We probably have media rights deals that if games aren't televised, that get adjusted in a negative fashion. So there's lots of that comes into play. Now we've taken lots of actions. Obviously, some well-documented personnel adjustments that were made, as well as numerous operating expense reductions that were available to us. But the reality is our athletes are all here. They're all training. So we've got scholarship expense, we've got nutrition expense, we've got academic support expense, we've got athletic training, medical expense. We've got all those things that don't go anywhere that we've got to continue to support. And without revenue flowing from those activities, it presents a really sort of unbalanced budgetary situation. We've got ongoing and sort of fixed expenses that we're incurring and no corresponding revenue to support those. So that's our challenge right now. We're pulling every lever we can, but all the funds that are raised from the More Than a Game campaign will help us basically stay in action, stay in motion here, and provide the support that we've committed to our student athletes, and again have them ready to compete when the time is right.
Okay. I'll pass it on to somebody else now.
Alan, you're down below him here in my screens.
And I'll pass to Brian. I'm a good passer. So
all right,
there you go.
Brian.
This is like a game show. Mike, another quick financial question. In conjunction with what you've done from a cost-cutting perspective, from what you've raised with the campaign, do you still anticipate needing some sort of third-party financing to get through this?
Are you offering?
I don't have nearly enough to help you, unfortunately.
Well, I'm kidding. That is an unanswerable question right now. It's right. Not inconceivable that we would need some sort of bridge to get through this. The challenge and the hope is that we could avoid that to the greatest extent possible, because anything you do that's not gift funds, obviously it would be in the form of a loan of some kind. And the nasty thing about loans is you have to repay them. And so that becomes a drag on future years and an anchor that you have to pull with you to get past and down the road. So, we're gonna do everything we possibly can to contain this without long-term financing possibilities or longer-term multi-year financing, because that just again creates issues down the road that would also need an answer. So I think we're gonna work like heck to not have to do that. But it's clearly on the table. if we don't raise enough money and if circumstances are just wholly unfavorable as the year rolls on.
Can you start to budget anticipating there will be football within the next 8 to 10 months? 6 to 8 months, maybe?
Not with clarity yet, because we don't know what that
correct.
might look like in terms of number of games, location of games. Will there be any seating, ticket sale revenue that's associated with that, or will it be like we watched last night at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in front of nobody? Don't know. Don't know how all that will happen. And a lot of that has to do with the time of year when we ultimately do play. And the number of games we're able to play. So it's very much still a moving target, but one that we're trying to identify all the variables so that when we do have some clarity, we can make an educated effort to put together a reasonable budget.
Is there a model for returning to action that you would kind of root for, that you would advocate for, provided the questions that need to be answered get answered?
Well, I think everybody's rooting for, and I think I would count our presidents in this group also. I know I count President Daniels in that group. We're all rooting for the earliest possible return. I mean, it's painful to watch others do this. I mean, that's no secret. I mean, that's human nature. It's painful for you all to watch. This is what you guys do for a living, just like we do, and to watch others do it and us not do it is not desirable. So I think the answer to that is as soon as we can possibly get back in action is our hope for objective. I just don't know exactly what that will be. We know we've been in very close contact with our television partners, primarily Fox. Obviously, ESPN's got a significant role in football also, but Fox is the big player in that, and have kept them completely apprised of all the different opportunities or options that might be in play. But again, it's all just options until we have clarity around the medical side of things.
All right. What's your expectation for basketball season?
Well, I would tell you this. I expect we're going to play basketball. I absolutely expect that. I think it'll probably be a modestly reduced number of games. I don't think we'll go from 30 to 18. I think we'll go from 31 or whatever the number usually is, down to somewhere in the mid-20s or thereabouts would be my guess. Whether that includes an expanded conference season or a conference-only season, or does it have a smattering of non-conference opportunities? I think all that is to be sorted out here in these next couple of weeks. There's lots of good conversation around that. Matt Painter has been very involved at the national level. He's on the Men's Basketball Oversight Committee. He's on NABC. He's also very involved with with our Big Ten basketball coaches group. Matt is a very respected and logical voice. They are doing a great job, in my opinion, of thinking ahead as to how they might pull off basketball seasons, and our women's coaches are doing the same thing. So basketball, I think, just by virtue of having a little evidence and time and an ability to observe where things didn't go well on the football side and for other sports, have tried to position themselves in a way where they're going to be in a position to actually go. And I feel very good about that. Now, what that means from a venue perspective and what that all looks like, that's TBD. But I do feel very strongly that we will have a basketball season. Obviously, basketball is a much more manageable population size. I mean, you're not dealing with the numbers that you are with football in particular, and so it's something you can get your arms around and hopefully find a way to do it in a responsible and very safe way.
Do you think you might be able to have fans in Mackey Arena?
I'm hopeful that we can. How many remains to be seen, but I'm very hopeful that we can. I know that a fanless venue is the ultimate fallback, and I guess that you don't want to take that off the table. But boy, it's not my idea of a very fun environment. But you know what? The most fun environment these days is just being able to compete. So whatever it takes to make that happen is what ultimately we'll be in favor of.
Gotcha. One last question for me. I don't know how much of an expert you've become on the supply chain here, but what's your general expectation as to when you might have access to the rapid response testing, whether it's the Saliva Direct or whether it's the device the Pac-12 has? Do you have any sort of idea as to when that might be available? Not only to you, but everyone.
Sure. My guess is the best case scenario for that is somewhere in the month of October. I don't think it's in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
I think it's probably a little further out than that. I mean, there's a production reality about that. There's an access reality. The Big Ten is, from the conference office level, is working feverishly on exactly that issue. That's not going to be left up to the individual schools. I think that's going to be done at a collective level, so that we all have the collective confidence that those tests are available and reliable and all those things. But I know it's not next week. There's a couple of weeks, I think, lead time for that to be even in the realm of possibility. And everybody's pushing hard to make that happen, but it's a little bit off yet.
Actually, one other quick clarification. You'd said earlier, once you get the rapid response testing, you'll still use the PCR test to confirm the rapid response test?
I believe that's what the medical group is going to, in the event of a positive. In the event somebody shows positive, in order to confirm that and make sure it's not a false positive, I think that there would be a confirmatory test. There may be some other possibilities that if someone has symptoms and is negative, there might be a confirmatory PCR test also in that case, just to be doubly safe. But it would not be a duplication across the board. It would just be in specific instances.
All right. Actually, I did think of one other thing. I apologize for the continual backtracking here. There's been a lot of conflicting information out there about the incidence of myocarditis. Can you speak generally as to whether or not that's touched Purdue?
Well, in general sense, we have evaluated a few of our positives along those lines, but we have, at this point, no confirmed cases of it.
Thank you. I'm good.
Joe.
Hi, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, so I apologize coming from a busy office, but my first question, do you have a certain number that you're anticipating for the Purdue Day of Giving tomorrow, a certain number for donations that you are projecting?
I don't have a number in mind, Joe. It's, previous years it's been $3 to $4 million, somewhere in that range. I would like to believe, and I think it will exceed that tomorrow. I think we're poised for a really good day, and I'm optimistic about that. But I'm not hanging my hat on a number because it's just, this is a different year in every way, and you have to account for that.
Mm-hmm. I have a copy of the budget from last year in front of me, and it looked like the athletics department made just over $17 million in profits. Can you?
That's not true. That's not true. So
I have a budget that I FOIA'd for that said the net operating income was just over $17 million.
Yeah,
I can check.
That's a prescribed reporting format that we have to report. That is not indicative of reality.
Right. Okay.
Our university budget last year, we had a $428,000 net surplus.
Okay, so can you explain to me what that number means then, or where?
Not for Joe. We could be here all day. This is not for.
Okay,
that's a prescribed reporting format that does not represent the reality of our athletic operation. I wish it did. I would be a happy guy if I had a $17 million net operating profit. I wouldn't be quite as frustrated or anxious as I am. I wouldn't have lost the weight I've lost. But that's not reality.
Okay.
I would advise you to not rely on that report.
Okay, fair enough. Can you also just give more detail about how student athletes, specifically student athletes living off campus, are being monitored and how they're following the protocol set before them?
Monitored? What do you mean by that? We're not following them off campus.
In terms of,
our athletes are being surveillance tested every week. There's a specific daily check-in screen that's provided before they access any of our facilities. And again, our testing numbers have been extraordinary. I think we have, as of last week's testing, we had 3 active cases. The last test of 700 plus folks had 1 positive student athlete case. I'm not going to apologize for that. I think our kids are doing a great job.
Right.
And we're just reinforcing the message every chance we get. Our coaches are, everybody that they come in contact with are just impressing upon our students, just like the student body in general, how important it is if they want to keep themselves, the community safe, that they need to pay close attention to how they're conducting their daily lives, and ultimately to preserve the opportunity to compete, they need to keep themselves virus free and to keep their teammates and others around them virus free. And so I think they've taken that to heart to this point, and I've been proud of that.
Thank you.
Dakota.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay, great. Hey, one of the things, obviously, a lot of focus has been around football right now, and 3 of the Power 5 conferences still plan on playing. Yep. But in terms of basketball, just getting started on time, I know right now you're scheduled to play in men's hoops Evansville on November 10th. What needs to happen from now until then to make sure that at least the basketball season gets started at a somewhat normal time for you guys?
Well, I think our ability to keep our basketball athletes, men's and women's, virus free, and to keep the incidence of that out of our programs, I think is really important. I think our coaches have continued to run their training sessions in a really intelligent way, where they've kept it in small groups. They haven't done full team activities in the event we have a positive, so we don't shut down the entire operation. The good news is we haven't had any positives here in some time now, so they've been able to stay at it. So that part feels like it's working well. We just need to stay the course in terms of that. The other part, I believe it's September 16th is the date that the NCAA Council is going to discuss the possibility of pushing back the beginning of the basketball seasons a couple weeks. I think is 2 to 3 weeks, somewhere around there is what I'm hearing. I think based again on the conversations Matt Painter is part of at the national level, that seems to be a likelihood, is that there will be somewhat of a pushback and a corresponding pushback in the start of formal practice and full team practice activities. That would be what I would use as the basis for what I said earlier, where I think we'll probably see a somewhat reduced playing schedule on the basketball front this year, because I do believe that the start of the season will be pushed a little bit, but not dramatically, not drastically. Somewhere near the end of November-ish would be what I think might happen at this point in time, and we're sort of got that in the back of our minds as we look at the rest of the calendar here this fall.
Have you guys looked at what some of the professional leagues are doing? I know the NBA is in a bubble, and that might not be possible, at the major college athletics level. Yeah. But have you looked at some of the things that professional sports have done to try to at least start? And obviously the NBA has done a good job of being able to continue their season. The MLB has done it without fans. Have you looked at that over the course of the last couple of weeks or months? Yes,
there's been lots of conversation between the NBA and the Big Ten office, the baseball folks, the NFL. I mean, there's lots of conversation, and some of what they're doing is transferable. Some of it is not. I mean, the phrase of the day is a bubble. That's the new amongst the many new phrases we've learned over the last 6 months. That's the phrase of the flavor of the month right now is bubble. We're not in a position to do that. Our athletes are college students. They're engaging in class. They're not. We can't take them off and place them into some artificially created environment for an extended period of time. That's just not feasible. So we can't do it that way. That being said, we think we can individually create very safe and virus-free or clean environments in our own midst. And again, it requires compliance on everybody's part. First and foremost, it begins with our athletes. They need to take this seriously, but so does all of our staff. So does everybody else. And in order to minimize the number of folks that are in and around our teams, it is really important. People that are maybe used to being sort of in that circle these days, maybe not this year. Maybe we need to keep it just a little tighter and do with less folks in order to maintain the most manageable population that we possibly can. I think all that is achievable. But again, we are trying to take the very best thinking from those professional leagues and the things that we think are adaptable and transferable and sort of college athletics appropriate. So there's definitely some crossover there.
I wanted to get back to football too, because I know earlier you said you expect at least some sort of football to be played. I don't know whether it's in 2020 or early 2021. Can you kind of expand upon that and what your thoughts are there as far as just playing football this academic school year?
Yeah, it's not in anybody's interest, and it certainly I don't think was in the president's interest when they voted to postpone to not play football at all during the 2021 year. They just didn't feel at that moment in time it was uh, prudent and safe and medically supported to be able to go, at that moment in time to be underway now. So again, I think everyone's interest coming out of that was to find a way to cobble together a football season this year of substance, not a 4-game make believe season, but a real football season. And we believe that if it ends up being a Big Ten only season, which it looks like it will be, potentially with some postseason opportunity if we get off on time, we think that'll be of great competitive value, of great interest, and a meaningful experience for our players. And that's what we want to do. We want to give them a chance to play Big Ten football. That's who they are. That's who they deserve to be. And everybody's working really hard to try and make that happen.
Last thing I had from this perspective on college football, obviously, like I said, 3 other Power 5 conferences are planning on playing. Have you had any conversations with ADs from other conferences on how they're handling this and what they're doing and how it might be possible to transfer, I don't know, their methods, I guess, to the Big Ten?
Yeah, they're doing all the same things we're doing. And I talked to one this morning, actually. So those are conversations are happening all the time. What they did, and which we, for a variety of reasons didn't do, we had the same plan that they had. That we had a schedule that was collapsible. We had an ability to adjust and adapt as circumstances presented. We just didn't see it through at a point in time. They've stuck with that plan, and they've had flare-ups. I mean, we've seen games postponed. I think there are 12 or 14 games at this point that have been pushed back, some to be rescheduled, some uncertain as to whether or not they'll be rescheduled. So all of that is sort of playing out exactly as we envisioned it. Their medical planning and protocols are the same things we're doing. In fact, they're not doing rapid point-of-care testing because it's not available yet to everybody. They're doing the same testing protocols that we laid out, that we had in place, or virtually identical. So we're all have access to that same information. They have just at this point in time decided to see it through a little bit longer to see if they can make it work. And we're all watching very, very closely and intently to see if that's possible.
That's all for me. Thanks, Mike.
Sure enough.
I've got a couple follow-ups, if I may,
Mike.
if you have time. If you can get a conference-only basketball season in, or 25, 26 games, whatever it is, from a television revenue standpoint, how much does that help you fill the gap of not having football media rights or a full football season?
I think that's a point of discussion and negotiation with our, between the Big Ten and our television partners. I mean, I think there's these days, I think it's well established that football is a significant value driver in media rights agreements. That doesn't mean basketball is unimportant. It's important, and it certainly has a role to play, and a not insignificant role. It would not plug the football gap anywhere near its entirety. That's that would be wishful thinking on my part, but not realistic thinking. It'll be welcome revenue for sure, and we would absolutely be wanting and counting on that to be part of our picture for this year in order to not create a multi-year problem, but it will not solve the football issue.
I would say if you play all conference games as opposed to some of the non-conference games, does that make the basketball package a little bit more attractive?
I would think so. I think those games are clearly of higher fan interest, higher viewership interest, more competitive value, and so I think there is certainly a negotiating point there in our favor to at least a conversation starter for sure.
And any plans to use the video board for some movies or anything like that, or is that on the table?
Yeah, that's we are working with our student life folks here at Purdue to find ways to make that happen. We ran some tests, I believe, on Friday of last week. Friday afternoon, I was out there for a little bit, and that was in full sunlight. It was pretty impressive. I think they've got the sound and everything all figured out now. So weather permitting and all, I believe we will be back in that, offering that opportunity to some students on Friday and Saturday night, or at least Friday night this week, maybe both nights, which should be actually very interesting to see. I think at nighttime that board is going to be something to see, and it's pretty darn good in the full-on sun, and at night it's going to be pretty impactful. So I think it'll be an enjoyable time for our students.
And if one more, what did you do last Saturday, which was supposed to be your first game?
Well, took the dog for a walk. You know, I couldn't bring myself to watch much on, to watch anything on Saturday. I watched a little bit Saturday night, I guess. It was just probably too depressing to bring myself to do. I was in the middle of binge watching some mediocre series on Netflix, I think. So I just finished that job, and that was it. But it was an odd day. It was all I could think about was during the middle of the day. It was a gorgeous day. I mean, it was an absolutely like blue sky. The air was just like, my God, you couldn't have drawn up a more beautiful and perfect football day, and yet that wasn't to be this year.
I mean, do you have those same feelings going into this week? Because regardless of the schedule, you're going to play at home. Yeah, no, it's it'll be likewise. There's a hole in all of our days right now that it's not easy to fill. Those of us that do this, all day, every day, and I've done it for 36 years now. That's what happens on Saturday. You have these events, and then without it, it's you're looking for clues here as to how to fill that time. So it's different for sure. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Mike, just one question on clarification. And I think you really said it, but it's as soon as possible for college football. I mean, there's been dates talked about: Thanksgiving, January 1st, October 10th. Is it literally, if you get everything ready to roll by November 1st, you could start then? Is that the thought process?
I think it is as soon as possible. Again, I believe that the right move will ultimately be to go back to our council of presidents and provide them with a structure and again the identifiable benchmarks that they're looking for and how and when those are going to be accomplished, and then sort of back up from there as to what you need in terms of a preparation for the season, in terms of training and full on practice and all of that. I mean, there's a reality to that you've got to prepare for, and so I think we'll go at some point to the presidents, and hopefully sooner rather than later. And I don't know what that specifically means, but as soon as all those details are identified and there are solutions that are at least clearly available to us, whether or not they're immediately available, but available by some date certain, then when you go back to the president and say, okay, assuming if this meets all your sort of meets the concerns and answers the questions that you had, here's how we would propose moving forward. So that's all yet to come.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Sure, guys.